Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Yeah? Okay. Cocked, locked, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Brad's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to call in, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. If you'd like to take us, as you travel, take us along, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Gwyneth Isaacs is with us live in Australia, and interesting topics today. We're going to be talking about off-grid living, private central banking, the prepper lifestyle, cash flow, how you can do it. And I've got to tell you, Gwyneth has a fabulous take on this. Welcome, Gwyneth Isaacs.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
It's pretty late where you are, isn't it?
It is just after midnight. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for staying up. Thank you for staying up late and being with us. Gwyneth, have you ever seen a YouTube video by a guy named Tom Mabe, M-A-B-E? He does. He walks around with a microphone, a video camera, and he sets up. It's almost like candid camera in some of his antics. Have you ever seen him?
No, I've never seen his videos, but I know the sort that you're talking about. We used to have candid camera on TV when I was a little girl.
Yeah. Well, some of it's like that, except it's man on the street, woman on the street, and it shows how dumb people are. And last night, yeah, it really does. Last night I was watching a few of his YouTube videos. And what he did was really, really brilliant. He got a cell phone, looked like a smart cell phone. And he modified it so that it would be a taser. And it would have a remote control that he would have. And he would go on a park bench. Now, I'm not kidding. This is what he did. He would get on a park bench that would hold a couple people. And he put a cell phone right next to him, maybe 8 inches away, a foot away at the most. And he would pretend to be asleep. He'd be leaning over, and he looked like he was either drunk, intoxicated somehow, under the influence somehow, or just really tired. And he'd just be hunched over, looking the other way. And people would come up, look both ways, look all around, and steal the phone, which was right next to him. I mean, literally, if he put his hand on the bench, just at a normal distance, his hand would be on the phone. And they would steal the phone and quickly walk away. And then what he would do is he'd wait till they got a distance away, and he'd hit the remote control button, and they'd get tased, and the phone would go flying out of their hands. And sometimes, and he did this over and over and over, and sometimes he would, walk very quickly. He'd kind of wake up, and he'd walk very quickly after that person who stole his phone. He said, "That's my phone." I go, "No, it's not." He goes, "That's my phone." And the guy who just stole it seconds earlier, I mean literally seconds earlier, would look at him straight-faced and say, "No, it's my phone." It's just unbelievable what people are doing today. And I don't know if they would do it with a wallet, but these phones seem to have this magical ability to get people to become dishonest instantly.
Yep, I would say they would also do it with wallets if you left them there.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this in any way other than what I saw. I would say 4 out of 5 people that were in the business of stealing this very, very phone, were black. There were a few white people that did it, and the whites, some of them were not children. They weren't teenagers. It's amazing. One guy was handy capable, if you will, and he was walking, with a limp, and he even stole the phone. That was a white guy. So it's a really sad commentary on who we are. And so, in some of the scenes that he had with this phone, he would say, "That's my phone." And the guy would say, "No, it's not." And he'd go, "Yeah, it is." And he'd hit the button. And it would come flying out of the guy's hand, as he's trying to get his phone back. But what I saw was person after person after person after person lying right to this guy's face. What an outrage. What an outrage. And the level of dishonesty was just unbelievable. So I wanted to share that with you. In class, if you want to look it up, go to YouTube and type in Tom, as in Thomas, Mabe, M-A-B-E. And his YouTube videos, I think, are titled Mabe in America, M-A-B-E, as in made in America, but Mabe, M-A-B-E, in America. Excellent. So if you get a chance, I suggest you check it out. But it just kind of shows you how, he would ask people questions, and he would make things up, and he would get people to lie on TV. One of his videos was, he was like the man on the street, and he was interviewing people, and he would say, you need to be from someplace else. Listen, can you be from another state? And he'd ask the person where they're from, and maybe it's California. And he'd go, or I'm right from right here. Well, can you lie for me and tell me, on air that you're from California or Ohio or Iowa? And they would do it. They would make things up. Yep. He went into a store, and he had like a lab coat on, impersonating a doctor, and he was on a phony cell phone call, and he was saying, how I've got a doctor right here with me. He'll confirm the X-ray is just you're fine. Hold on, here he is. He's Dr. So and so, and he'd point the phone to this guy, and this guy he met in the store would say, you're fine. The X-ray looks good. Unbelievable what people are willing to do.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So today we're going to talk about private central banking and cash flow and the prepper lifestyle. Rick Shealy and I talked yesterday about the prepper lifestyle, and there was an article.
I was listening to his podcast on Ron Gibson's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That's where I listen to USA Prepares. I don't normally listen to it live. Mm-hmm. But I said, and that was funnily enough, I think, after I'd sent that email.
Well, we're on the same page.
Yeah, we are.
And what happened is people who are preparedness-minded or survivalist-minded are getting bashed in the media that we are a bunch of moochers. Really? Moochers? We want to be left alone. We don't want to mooch off the police. The last thing we want to do is have the police come help us. The last thing we want to do is have the government come help us. We're not moochers at all. We're exactly the opposite of moochers. We want to be left alone. We want to figure it out for ourselves. We want to ferret it out for ourselves. We want to research it for ourselves. We want to determine the truth for ourselves. And we want to be independent as best as we can.
We want to be left alone.
Yeah, so we are the opposite of what these articles are saying about us. We are not moochers. As a matter of fact, is a moocher someone who gives a hand up to someone who's in trouble? Is that what a moocher is? Because that's what we are. We help people who are in trouble. We help people who need assistance. We teach people at our own expense and our own time. And by the way, we can't get the time back. So the most expensive thing we have to share is our time, because we can't get it back. We can't buy it back. And that's what we do here at USA Prepares. We teach, and we encourage others to teach and share and help. That's what we do. So it kind of frosted me about this professor who wrote this article that Rich Eben was talking about. In class, if you want to hear it, that's yesterday's broadcast on USA Prepares. And that would be August 7th. And Ron Gibson is a gentleman whom I've met, and he lives in the Carolinas. And he gets a copy of our broadcast, takes out the commercials, and posts it on YouTube every day, and has been for years. Thank you so much, Ron Gibson. You're a true gentleman. You really are. I really like Ron Gibson. And he has 3 broadcasts that he likes. One of them is Alex Jones. Another one is Michael Rivero. And the third is USA Prepares. Thank you so much, Ron Gibson. That's Ron Gibson's YouTube channel, where you can download this broadcast. You can also pick it up, GCN Live. The archives are on gcnlive.com. Also, Republic Broadcasting. And Republic Broadcasting, thank you very much, carries this broadcast 1 day delayed. And then KLID and other radio stations all over the country additionally carry USA Prepares. And thank you very much to all of our affiliates. So, Guineith, where would you like to start?
Well, it's like this. Ultimately, I know I wrote this at the end of the, of the email that I sent to you. It's about epigenetics, okay? My ancestors lived in a certain way, and their way of living was successful for them. It was very successful, okay? They would go out and they would get a piece of land and they would build an estate. And we've got an ad coming up, so I think I'll go into this a bit more on the other side of the break.
Okay. Guineith Isaacs is with us, live in Australia, and if you'd like to contact her, usaprepares.com in the instructors tab. I'll get you right to her. You know, Guineith, I really enjoy broadcasting with you. I really do. We're exactly on the same page on so many issues. I can't think of anything that we've ever disagreed on, literally. So I just want to I publicly want to say that. And even off the air, you know, we talk about all kinds of things, and we're in total agreement. So thank you so much. So we're talking about epigenetics. Yeah.
Well, my ancestors, I think I've said on previous broadcasts, were British nobility. And this is only going back, I'd say 5 generations on my dad's side, and we're talking about my grandmother on my mum's side. So it's myself, my mum, that's 3 generations back on my mum's side. So on both sides of the family, you go back a few generations, you immediately hit British nobility, okay? Now, a lot of people love to bag the British nobility, but I'll tell you what, they basically, if you include the British nobles that went to the United States and became entrenched there, they built the modern world, no doubt about it. And the majority of people who are in positions of power today just happen to be the descendants of British nobility. And that includes, I think, every president of the United States except for, I think you could say 3 now. I don't think Donald Trump is descended from British nobility, but he might be descended from European nobility. Okay, so the European blue bloods. because of the name Trump, it actually means triumph, or he has won the victory, or he played a trick and so succeeded. That's what the literal Latin meaning of the word Trump is, which tends to indicate a family that weren't losers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but the thing is, they had a system, a way of doing things that actually worked. And how they did it was this. I sat down and I said to myself, right, my ancestors were successful. What did they do? Okay. They ran their own lives. They, to this day, practically every noble child in the UK learns how to ride a horse. They all do it. If you ask the parents, why do you teach your kids horse riding? They go, I don't know. We just do. That's what we've always done. It gives you independence of transport. If you can ride a horse, you can go places and you don't have to have anybody say so. If you have a horse and if you know how to ride it, okay? They learn how to swim. They learn how to sail yachts. They learn how to garden, and they learn something called animal husbandry, which is how to raise animals, livestock, dogs, horses, and cattle. Okay? They learn how to do these things, even if you pick them up and put them in the middle of nowhere. They just automatically do these things. And if you say, why do you do these things? They just shrug their shoulders. I don't know, it's what we've always done. And I think I wrote in that, when I wrote to you earlier, I mentioned Nicole Kidman. I've mentioned her before, and for a good reason. She is of British blue blood stock, okay? You look at her and you can see it. There's a genetic at work there. Her father is Sir Anthony Kidman, okay? He has a station out in the middle of the Australian outback. He's a very, very wealthy man. She is not. She was never going to be a nobody here in Australia. Okay. Her father does not sit on his royal behind. He raises cattle. He's a rancher, you would call him in America, but he doesn't just have, a few hundred cattle. He has thousands of them.
So, Guineith, I went to a search engine during the break, and I typed in Nicole Kidman, and I looked up images. And what I did not find is the raunchy style images that you find of a Kim Kardashian or the Kardashian clan. You don't see those raunchy images of Nicole Kidman. So I then typed in Nicole Kidman, tattoos. And there was one image of her with a tattoo, but it doesn't look real to me. It looks like that was photoshopped. And so what I'm seeing is that that those with blue blood breeding don't do these stupid things that others do. Is that true?
Well, sometimes we do.
Okay.
When I was a teenager, I actually did go out and tattoo myself. But I was a stupid, rebellious teenager, and my parents didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And now it's there. I haven't got any sense. We do stupid things sometimes. We're not perfect. Okay.
Would you recommend? All right. Would you recommend that people get tattoos or not?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
It's a stupid thing to do.
Okay. Well, I told our I told our children that if any one of them decided to get a tattoo, they would be out of the will. And I meant it.
Yeah.
I meant it. And I also said to them that if any of you guys decide you're queer, don't come home.
Yeah, I look at it this way. I was living amongst the Maori people. They're kind of into tattooing. And so I think that's what sort of influenced me that way. And but I say, well, it's, some things can't be undone, really. And I'm grateful that I got my life back on track before it went any more astray than what it did. But yeah, getting back to it, I don't know if you still have the internet, but if you Google Sir Anthony Kidman or Anthony Kidman, and you will see it will come up with a photo of him, Nicole Kidman's father, and he is a cattle rancher on a massive scale. He has millions and millions of acres of land. Unfortunately, it happens to be in the middle of the Australian outback, so it's quite poor country, but he still manages to raise tens of thousands of cattle off it every single year and send them off to the butcher shops. And they live free range, his cattle. And she grew up mustering cattle, roping them, branding them, riding horses, etc., etc. And when she was a teenager, she landed her very, very first movie role that I'm aware of in a movie called The Man from Snowy River, okay, which is a famous Australian bush poem. And it goes something like, there was movement at the station, for the word had passed around that the colt from Old Regret had got away. Something, something, something. He was worth £1,000, and all the whips had gathered for the fray. Now, what that means, there's this colt from a famous racehorse, okay, called Old Regret. And Old Regret was a racehorse. When he retired, he was a stallion. He escaped and went bush. And then, when he was an old horse, he came back and he called away his final colt, okay, which was, or something like that anyway. Anyway, this colt, which was worth £1,000, £1,000 was a lot of money back then, when the weekly wage was £5 if you were lucky, okay? And the whole thing is about cattle mustering and horse mustering, this whole poem. And there was this movie made back in the 1980s called The Man from Snowy River, and it was basically this poem put into movie form. And the female star attraction was, guess who? Nicole Kidman. And she gets out there and she rides with the best of them in this movie. And it's quite a joy to see, actually, because the male lead, there's so many famous actors who went on to be famous actors in Hollywood in that movie. The male lead went and taught her in the movie how to ride, but it's apparent, if you've got eyes to see it, she knew how to ride anyway. She'd been riding since she was, probably since about she could walk. This is how British nobles raise their children. They teach them how to ride. They teach them how to hunt. They teach them how to garden. They teach them how to yacht. And they teach them how to fish. These are the original preppers, okay? Going back 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years, this is how we've always raised our children. And they've been homeschooled. And we haven't always been so willing to do what the guy down the road told us to. That we have run our own affairs in a peaceful way, in a prosperous way, and because they would generally end up owning most of the land in the district, and then they would actually employ people, you know, because not everybody wants to run their own affairs. A lot of people want to work for somebody else, and they would go and they would employ people. They would build big houses, which would require a staff to run them, and there were people in the village who actually wanted to work for the nobles. They didn't have to go out and forcibly enslave people to come and work at the big house. They would go down to the village and say, is there anyone who wants to cook and clean? And any one of a half a dozen women would put their hands up, and the Lord would say, okay, you, and you, come up to the big house, you've got a job, you're hired, I'll pay you a wage. Look after my house for me, and you can work for her ladyship over here. Because these houses were huge. There's no way that just one person could look after them. And they would go and they would fill the house with beautiful things. These beautiful things needed somebody to make them. So they would actually build up the local economy, because there would be somebody there in the village who had to make the exquisite chairs, the tables, the cabinets, the doors, and so on and so forth, okay? There was somebody who had to go and shoe the horses, okay? You know, that's work for the blacksmith. Maintain the carriage. This is going back 100 or 200 years. But the guy who was the Lord would be the one who organised it all. And he was the prepper. He was the one who prepared. He would organise for people to do the wheat crop, okay? That wheat crop would end up feeding half the district. And, there's a bit of a thing, I think, mostly from the left wing of the media for giving the British nobles a bad time. Now, when they weren't perfect, they did do bad things, okay? And they did have slaves on occasion, you know, but the thing is that they had brains, they organised, and because of them, there basically was an organised local economy, because they would generally get the wealth that they produced, and they would distribute it through their local area. And if the local lord was a wise man, then his whole district prospered, because he paid his employees well, and then they would go and they would spend the money in the local community, okay? And he would make sure that they had enough time off. This is a concept called noblesse obligée. It means the obligation of the nobles to look after the people in their community, okay? And when it would come time for war, he would often be the first to volunteer, and he would be the example to the other people who were there. And if he would say something like, well, I don't think this is a just war, I'm not going to volunteer, then the chances of the king getting any other volunteers out of his community were probably a lot less. And sometimes that would lead to a rebellion, and it would lead to things like, the foundation of the United States, and that was started, as far as I can tell, by a certain noble family called the Washingtons deciding that they wouldn't toe the line. And when the British came along and wanted to take money and take, men for soldiers and all the rest of it, and the Washingtons didn't agree. They said, well, actually, we don't think what you're doing is right. But it's the role that I believe that the prepper movement is going to become hugely important because we're going to be the leaders, we're going to be the ones who know how to do all this stuff already, and when it comes to a collapse scenario, we're going to find that we're the ones who are actually helping out everybody else. And it doesn't matter if you're born from a British noble or not. If you get in on this movement, then you're going to be one of the people who is helping to rebuild.
Very, very well put, Guineith Isaacs. Absolutely brilliantly said. You know, Guineith, I was thinking as we went into break, there are leaders and there are followers. And as you said so aptly, leaders are preppers. They're preparedness-minded. So who would want a leader who said something like this? Huh, I never thought of that. You know, that's something that you very, very rarely, if ever, hear a leader say. Huh, I never thought of that. Or, gee, huh, wow. You know, it never occurred to me. Now, leaders are preppers, and preppers are people who look toward the future, try to forecast the future in the best way they can, and plan for the eventualities of that future. And that comes in terms of gardening. Wow, if you don't know how to grow your own food, and if you have to, you're in trouble. And if you haven't thought, you know, maybe I should get some extra food put away because we might have a time when we won't be able to buy it. Well, those are all things where preppers look toward the future. You know, doomsday preppers, the more toilet paper you had, the better off you were. Well, we think, here at USA Prepares, we think it's supplies, it's knowledge, it's skills, it's tools, it's learning how to learn. It's ferreting out the truth from the fiction. And it's planning for those eventualities. And you know, one of the things that you and I absolutely agree on, and we were going to talk about today, is that the preparedness lifestyle is a frugal lifestyle, and it actually saves money. Absolutely costs less in the long run.
Yep. Yep.
In the short run, that's
it's
not necessarily the case.
Costs big money.
Yeah. For example, let me give the class an example. In my case, I don't buy anything unless I can afford it. And I'm very, very frugal. So when I buy a vehicle, it's a used vehicle. And so instead of leasing a vehicle for, I don't know, $300-400 a month, maybe $500, instead of doing that, which would be less expensive in the short run, I bought an old Mercedes for $3,000 that needed some work. It needed 2 glow plugs and a few other things that I wanted to do to it. So maybe a couple $100 on top of the $3,000. Okay, so let's say $3,200 by the time I was done with it. Maybe $3,300. That's 10 times more expensive than leasing a vehicle that a new shiny new little puddle jumper. Well, I have a vehicle that lasts another couple 100,000 miles.
Yep.
And it's awesome. You know, it's not the prettiest, but it certainly does the job. It's not all banged up. It's very nice. It really is. But it doesn't look showroom. Maybe it looks like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. And I'm delighted with it. And to me, it's the best car I've ever owned. And it's simple and it's Spartan. It's not luxuriously appointed. But to me, it's the best car I've ever owned in lots of ways. It's not the fanciest. It's not the most luxurious car. It's not the most expensive, but it sure is the best in my opinion. So this prepper lifestyle is one of looking toward the long term, and it becomes very less expensive. It becomes way more affordable in the long term. Like the solar system we're building. In the short run, oh man, it's not cheap. In the long run, in the long run, we won't have an electric bill. And so,
Yep.
how many bills have we gotten rid of? Well, we don't have mortgages. We don't have car loans. We don't have these monthly interest payments. Haven't had that for over 20-something, almost 30 years. Okay?
Yep.
Haven't had a job either. But what I'm saying is, if you live this lifestyle, you can be independent and you can save a lot of money. And let's talk about that when we come back. Why it's so much better to do it this way. Yeah, Guineith Isaacs is with us, and she's live in Australia. You can find her on usaprepares.com. You can find her on page 1, or you can find her on the instructors tab. We'll be back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. This is Vincent Finelli, usaprepares.com. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us. And we've been talking about preparedness in a different way, different look at preparedness, and those who have been preppers in our history, like our founding fathers in the United States, like George Washington. We wouldn't respect him if he said things like, "I never thought of that." We wouldn't respect him if he didn't plan for the future. And how many people, let me ask you this, class, how many people do you respect that don't plan and look toward the future? Do you expect Donald Trump to not look toward the future? Do you expect him to guess his way, or do you expect him to plan? We don't want people in leadership roles who are not planners. We don't. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm looking to run for the board of directors position at our local electric cooperative. I don't think the guys that are there now have been doing a good job in leadership. I mean, they're really great at increasing electric rates year after year after year after year, and it's not necessary. But what's happened is the generally uninformed public has been lulled to sleep thinking that, prices just need to go up. No, they don't. Prices do not need to go up over and over. That's because of the international bankers with their quantitative easing and their printing of money. And that's why prices are going up, and up. Yeah. So inflation is insidious theft of our wealth. And we want people who can stop that. And that's the kind of leadership we're looking toward. We've had it. We've had it with these alleged leaders, like the Clintons, who are the problem. They are the problem. They are the problem. Guineith, so preparedness is a mindset focused on surviving the future, right? Isn't that what it is? That's right. Getting through today, and getting through tomorrow.
Not only surviving, but prospering into the future. Okay, so yes, I believe that we are facing a full-scale systemic collapse, but we have been here as a human species before. Okay, there have been systemic collapses. All right, there is evidence in Britain of ancient technological civilizations. Okay, certain things that were built, monuments and so on, we don't even know how they were built anymore. I'm thinking in particular of Stonehenge and the preciseness of its astronomical alignments, and the fact that the stones actually resonate at certain phases of the moon. And you can take Carolean cameras, those are cameras that photograph energy fields up there. There's photos of them on the internet. These stones actually glow with resonant energy under Carolean photographic conditions. So we don't know how to build that. That technology has gone. But we rebuilt. We rebuilt with another sort of technology, okay? And we have the modern world with us today. But our modern world it probably to a large extent will go away. I would say certainly within my lifetime, and that we'll go back to, basically what I always saw from when I was a little kid was that there would be a dual layer of economy and technology. On the one hand, we'll be riding horses, but we'll be riding horses making calls on mobile phones. You know what I mean? There's a double layer of technology. I believe that the infrastructure of energy is still going to be there, and computers and the internet and all of that sort of stuff. But a lot of other layers of technology are going away, and that we have to be prepared for that time. One technology that is going away is fiat currency. All right, that's going away as we speak. Now, what I mean when I say fiat currency, fiat is a word in Latin. It means because I say so. And when it's referred to fiat currency, it's because the government and the central bankers say so. Okay? They say that it's currency or so-called money because they say so. There's nothing else backing it. There used to be notes for the receipt of gold and silver, okay? But that's no longer so. They're called legal tender. Exactly what does that mean? It means fiat. It means because they say so. That's going away because it's being counterfeited out of existence by the so-called government and by the central banks, okay? Specifically, the U.S. Treasury and the New York Fed, printing their own currency out of existence. Since about 1915, it has lost something like 99% of its value. So if you took a U.S. $1 bill back to 1915 and said, right, we'll see how much this can buy, it would have bought about the same amount as a $100 bill. And that's very easy to prove. I have a poster in my home, and it says something like Coca-Cola. And I don't know if this one's got the little 5 cent in a circle around it. Mm-hmm. But you used to be able to get, 100 years ago, a bottle of Coca-Cola for 5 cents. That's a dime, right?
No, 5 cents is a half of a dime.
Half of a dime. Okay. 5 cents, and these posters are famous. Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola, 5 cents, sold here. Mm-hmm. You know, and you can, people collect these posters. These days, how much would you pay for a bottle of Coca-Cola or soda at a restaurant, for instance?
I can tell you this:
or
if you went to a soda machine today, a plastic bottle of Coca-Cola or Pepsi is about $1.50, $1.50.
Okay.
And at a restaurant, I think you're looking at close to $2 or more for a glass. And you're absolutely right. There's no question about the validity of what you're saying, because when I was younger, when I was young in the 1960s and the 1950s, you could buy a gallon of gasoline, and I remember seeing the signs, 24.9 cents per gallon. A loaf of bread was 17 cents. If you wanted to buy the house brand of soda, you could get it in a can at the store brand for 7 cents. If you wanted to buy a Coke out of a machine, it was 10 cents. A haircut was 25 cents. And a submarine sandwich was 37 cents for a half of a sub.
Wow. So
That's for sure.
All about, I guess a sub today would be about $3.70, right? Around about $3 or $4 for a half sub.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what you're really looking at is easily 10 times more expensive today than in the 1960s. However, there's some things that have gone way up. So that 10-cent soda is now $1.50 or 15 times more. That haircut that was 30 or 25 cents and it jumped to 35 cents when I was a child, that haircut is now $11.
Yeah.
That loaf of bread is $2.
Yeah. And you know something? There's no doubt about it, the US dollar's going away. When it goes away, the rest of the global economy is going to, by and large, go away as well. Okay? Except that there has come a technology in the last 10 years or so called Bitcoin. Okay? And I believe that Bitcoin is here in a timely way to help to resolve this really, really important issue of what's going to happen when the US dollar goes away. And what Bitcoin is, if you could imagine the game Minecraft, all right? I don't know if there's anybody out there who's played Minecraft, but you can go on the internet and look it up and see YouTube videos of people playing Minecraft. Now, one of the things you can do is you go and you mine and you bash blocks until they break, and you bash a certain number of blocks, and let's say every 30th block, you'll hit it and you'll get a little Minecraft emerald. And then you go and you pick it up in the game and it goes into your chest. You have a chest, and that's where you store things that you collect in the game. It's a very, very good game, actually. If anyone there, wants to teach their kids about prepping, if anyone has kids where the whole prepping thing is just a bit crazy, sit them down with Minecraft, and they'll get it. Because the whole game is basically about prepping in a virtual world. You've got to build a house. You've got to gather resources. If you don't grow food, you're going to starve.
What was that thought? Guineith, as we were discussing preparedness, I was thinking about the Hoover Dam. Hoover Dam is a dam between Nevada and Arizona, and it generates electricity. And before that dam, we never built in this country anything that big. It's absolutely huge. And originally it was known as the Boulder Dam. And was built in 1933 to 1947. And, construction began in 1931, but it was an absolutely incredibly huge project. And we completed it. And you were talking about Stonehenge. I was thinking about the Great Pyramids. I was thinking about construction of an era bygone. And I'm wondering, are we able to do anything like that today? We certainly can't build the pyramids. We don't know how. Stonehenge, that's another problem for us. Could we build another Hoover Dam? I don't think so.
Probably not.
And isn't that amazing? We've got bigger machines. We've got computerized controls. But I don't think we have the stick-to-itiveness, the foresight, the planning, and the mindset necessary to build a Hoover Dam. No,
it's gone. My dad would talk about this. My dad was a master engineer. He said, when you are growing up, there's going to be a huge crisis. And I said, what's that, Dad? And he said, the world's running out of engineers. And you know something? He was absolutely right. There's not the engineering knowledge to be able to pull something like that off these days. And, back in the day, people built these all over the landscape, these exact same structures. I think the last one, or one of the last ones to be built, was the Oroville Dam, but we know how that's unfolding at the moment.
Yeah, it came apart.
They didn't put the spillway in properly. That's, dam building 101. Make sure you put in an adequate spillway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my son is
going to fill.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, it's going to fill and it's going to overflow, and you have to make sure that the spillway will not wipe out the dam.
My son drove off with the backhoe last week, and he was digging a pond deeper. And we were talking about this, and so he was working for half a day, and he made this great big pile of earth that he scooped out of the pond, because he wants to make it deep enough so that it holds a lot of water. And he who had never built a pond before, never built one, decided that where the spillway needed to go, the right location for the spillway, he was going to go take out a transit, and he was going to check it for water flow that would, where the water would go. Never built one before, so even he knew that. Yeah. And I'm not saying that he's not bright, because he is, but he never built one before, and that was of a concern to him. So yeah, but I'm concerned that we just don't have the drive, nor the talent, nor the desire for people to excel the way we did during the construction of the Hoover Dam. Seriously. Yeah. And there was a consortium of companies that had to work together. Can you imagine 6 companies today working together with a common goal?
They'd all be too busy fighting over who was going to get the biggest share of the pie.
Right. That's exactly right.
I'll tell you something. Here's a bit of a historical factoid, okay? Herbert Hoover was President of the United States, right?
Yes.
Now, before he was President of the United States, he was the mayor of an outback town called Kalgoorlie. And, of course, like most of the presidents of the United States, he was a Freemason, okay? And he was actually in the same lodge as my great-uncle and my grandfather. How's that? When he was in Kalgoorlie. Now, my grandfather was an automotive engineer. He survived the entire Battle of the Somme. He arrived near the beginning of the Battle of the Somme, and he was there for most.
Before we had the Pentagon in the United States, we never lost a war. After the Pentagon, we never won a war. Now, that's pretty much true. Okay, the Pentagon was dedicated in 1943, but if you realize that we were winning the war, World War II, it's hard to say that the Pentagon was, responsible for that. But so before the Pentagon, we never lost a war. With the Pentagon, we never won a war. That's one fact.
Massive entrenched bureaucracies are not good.
Yeah. Here's another one.
Yeah.
In 1979, under the President Jimmy Carter regime, the Department of Education was created. Since then, in my opinion, our students have been dumbed down more and more and more each year. So we had people before the Department of Education who were engineers who could do things without the benefit of the microprocessors, who could use slide rules, and who could build things like the Hoover Dam. And since the Department of Education, our students have become less and less and less capable of doing almost everything.
Yeah.
And
here's an interesting interesting
Can I
point
prove
on
it?
a related topic. I'm going to
Okay.
dob my child's high school in for something that just happened today or in the last few days. He was set an English assignment. He had to write an essay on why we should not have guns. And if he did not write the essay on why we should not have guns, he was going to get a detention and lose his lunch hour.
Mm-hmm.
How's that? That's gobsmacking.
So what? Well, I can imagine that if you and I were in that class,
I'd say, I'm not writing this stupid essay. And I'd get up and I'd walk out.
yeah, or the essay,
yeah,
or the essay might be one sentence. What a ridiculous thought, or what a dumb question, or who thought of that?
Question. Or
Yeah.
World War II. You know.
Yeah.
And
You know,
where would we have been without guns? The only reason why Hirohito didn't invade the United States was, quote, I'm not going to invade the United States. Every third household has a firearm.
Yeah.
That's a quote.
I remember a quote similar to that. Like there's a gun behind every blade of grass in the United States. You know, in the United States, prior to the entrenchment of the United States Department of Education, there used to be rifle teams at high schools, and they literally had 22 caliber target rifles. And there would be a team of youngsters. I mean, there's football and baseball and basketball and tennis and all kinds of sports. But there was also a rifle team. Yeah, marksmanship, and we trained in marksmanship. And then we decided that it's way too dangerous, so we can't have that. So that would be brought on by someone like your son's teacher, who is an opponent of guns. But one of the reasons why we're left alone here on our farm is people know that we have guns. They absolutely know it. Why do they know it? Because they see us with them, and they see us. They'll see our son on a tractor mowing a hayfield with a shoulder holster and a
They leave you alone.
and a handgun on one side,
Yep.
and spare magazines on the other side.
Yep.
They'll see us with our Jeep. They'll look in the window and they'll see an AR-15.
Yep.
And why do we have those things? Because we're on our own. Well, they are, and we're on our own.
What if you get a cow and it's put its foot down a rabbit hole and broken its leg?
Right.
You got to dispose of that animal right away.
Or you can let it suffer and die.
Or you can let it suffer for half an hour, or you go down to the house, and then maybe its bellowing has brought in a pack of wild dogs from the forest.
Yeah. Yep.
And or you can say, well, sorry, darling, there you go. I don't know if you've ever lost a cow in that way, but it does happen occasionally.
Oh, it absolutely positively does, and I know it firsthand. There are times when we'll see cars or trucks parked along the side of the road right at our farm, and they'll be positioned in a very strange way where they look very, very suspicious. They'll be near our calves, small calves the size of a very large dog. One a calf that could be picked up while it's sleeping and stolen. And, we like to make friends. And whenever we see people doing things like that, we pull up right in front of them. Lots of times where it's very inconvenient for them to get out. And we'll introduce ourselves. And we'll say, what are you doing?
Yep.
And they know.
Yep.
They know that if they continue, if they continue on that path, it'll be a very bad day for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. And especially
so they leave.
for them. Yep.
And they don't come.
Right.
And they don't come back.
Yep.
Once we encounter them, once we have a nice so glad to meet you encounter with them, they don't come back. And we don't yell at them, and we don't scream at them. We just ask them what they're doing.
Yep.
And they can't explain it. And they leave.
Yep. Yep, that's right. But I'll tell you what, you can't do any of that if you don't have the money.
Right.
You can't build the Hoover Dam. The only reason they could build the Hoover Dam at that time was because they had the funding to do so. Okay? These days, you'd get the funding and about 90% of it would be siphoned off and would never ever get to building the dam. Now, what Bitcoin is, getting back to the topic of Bitcoin, it is a way where anyone can set up their own private central bank, okay, and have the Bitcoin mine being the heart and soul of this private central bank. Now, what a Bitcoin mine is, it's like the game of Minecraft. You hit a certain number of blocks, every so many number of blocks, you hit a block that has the Bitcoin in it, okay? You can download the mining software off the internet and install it onto any computer. But if you've got a slow computer, the software is going to run slower, okay? If you have a fast computer, then it's going to run a lot faster. You have to have a high-powered computer. I have a Bitcoin mine. It is run for me by a company called BitClub, okay? And unfortunately, if you live inside the United States, BitClub can't help you, okay? But if you are outside of the United States, and if you want to get a Bitcoin mine, okay, you can go to www.bitclub.network/Guineith, and I'm happy to sponsor anyone in the class who lives outside of the United States who wants to have a Bitcoin mine that is run for them. The reason why I get BitClub to run my Bitcoin mine for me is we live off the grid, and if you're going to have a Bitcoin mine, you must have a 99.9% reliable source of electricity. You need to hardly ever have blackouts, because if that equation is interrupted just before you hit that block, then your whole thing is useless, okay? So you can't have it to where the electricity goes out at a certain hour each night and then starts up in the morning when the sun comes up, okay? You just can't have that. And if you're going to run your own Bitcoin mine, you'll find that you have to have quite a high-powered computer, all right? And you have to have preferably one called a GPU computer, all right? It doesn't have to have particularly sophisticated sound card or, you know, a really fancy screen or anything like that. But it's heart, it's CPU or it's GPU. A lot of what, if people want a really high-powered computer, often they'll slot a graphics card into where the central processor of the computer should be. There's a certain type of computer called a Raspberry Pi, which a lot of Bitcoin miners are using. If you need to do that, then you can research how to build an appropriate type of computer for Bitcoin mining on the internet. But you have to have a 100% reliable source of electricity that's not too expensive. But if anyone there wants to set up a Bitcoin mine, that's going to be a really, really good way for you to become your own central bank and set up the prepper lifestyle.
That's a really good point, Guineith. And it's a great lifestyle. You know, if I won the lottery, my life wouldn't change at all. I'd still be driving my best car ever, that 1996 Mercedes with diesel. You know, Guineith, I was looking on the internet for the Raspberry Pi, and that's spelled raspberry, RASPBERRY. Pi is spelled PI, as in 3.14. And they're about $48 US. And I was looking at an article about you can gang these together, if you will. And I'm looking at an image where one guy's got 8 of these Raspberry Pis ganged together. And they used to take about 700 watts each for mining. They've got the watts down to 2.5 watts, which is incredibly low.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
I would recommend people do it that way for Bitcoin mining, because if you have a single CPU unit, you could be waiting 2 or 3 months for it to finally hit that Bitcoin. Okay, and it has to be connected with the internet. So you have to have a reliable internet connection. You have to have a reliable source of electricity. Okay, and
Guineith,
I have to say a disclaimer here before we go any further. Okay, BitClub does pay me a commission for everybody that I refer to them.
How would you like them to? How would you like to for them to refer? What do they do?
To bitclub.network. Okay, that's www.bitclub.network/Guineith. That's Guineith. Okay, you'll see a box there. Leads free members area. You type your email address into there, and it will allow you to the leads area of the site. You can have a look around, see what it looks like, and decide for yourself. You do your own research. You find out what Bitcoin is about, what Bitcoin mining is about, but you can go in there through my site, and you can see exactly how it operates, okay? It is a multi-level system, okay? But it only goes, I think it only goes a certain number of layers deep, about 5 layers deep, okay? But the thing is, the reason why they do it that way is because people who have successful Bitcoin mines are the best salespeople, okay? And my own Bitcoin mine is becoming quite a profitable venture. It would be increasing in size by about 0.5% per day at the moment. And if you calculate that out, okay, I'm not drawing any profits off it at the moment. What I'm doing is I'm just letting it grow. You can set the thing where 100% of your earnings are churned back into the mine to buy additional mining hardware. Okay, that's what I'm doing with my mine at the moment. But with the most basic level, you can have it set to where 50% of your earnings are paid out into a Bitcoin wallet. And you can withdraw them from there. And but at the moment, because I'm looking for something to build a long-term cash flow, I've got 100% of my earnings going back into the mine. And because of that reason, my mine is growing by about 0.5% per day. And if you look out there to any investment that's growing by 0.5% per day, there's not many of them out there. And when it gets to a certain size, I will I will reset it and have it so I can withdraw some funds.
One of our instructors, Guineith, I'm sure you've heard him on the air. His name is Miles, and he hails from Europe. He was on, and he told us that we should consider buying bitcoins. And at the time, they were $750 each.
Yeah.
And he said they're going to go up 2, 3, 4 times. Well, that was about 6 months ago. Right now, they went from $750 to $3,400.66 at the moment.
Wow.
That's four and a half times.
That's amazing.
4.5 times.